Grab your favorite alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage, drink responsibly, do not drink and drive, and join us for the latest episode of Why Complain When You Can Whine. Everything in this podcast is purely for entertainment and psychoeducational purposes only. Enjoy! Welcome to Why Complain When You Can Whine, making sense of the senseless. Join us as we attempt to make sense of toxic nonsense while drinking wine or any other beverage.
An energy drink tonight. Sorry, it's not going to be alcohol.
I have alcohol.
I'm jealous.
I am Dr. Jodi Lorman, licensed clinical psychologist in the state of California, and I need alcohol tonight. I'm sorry. Yesterday was National Drink Wine Day in the United States. I am drinking wine tonight, and what I have is a rosé called Moonlight and Roses.
Ooh.
And because I had to grab something, I didn't have time to let anything breathe and all that.
Rosé is lovely.
And this is my glass tonight. It says liquid therapy.
Oh yeah, that's great. Even my energy drink would be good in that cup right now.
Yeah. So
yeah, amazing. Thank you, Dr. Lorman. Well, my name is Bri, or Brianne, whatever you prefer, and I am a licensed registered therapist up in Vancouver, British Columbia. Usually, actually, I do everything, but focus mostly on trauma recovery and from narcissistic abuse. So very fitting for tonight's topic.
And you are drinking your energy drink.
Oh, yes. I'll just show you what it is. And it's beautiful. It came from the States. We don't get these here in Canada.
Aloha. Oh, I like that.
Oh, yeah. It's Aloha. It's, what is it? Arctic white.
Oh.
Yes.
Nice.
So trying to keep my energy up. It's been one of those days and weekends, right?
Oh, yeah. I relate.
My liquid therapy right now.
Yeah. So tonight, why this is so apropos, us needing alcohol on my end and energy drink on her end, and that she works with narcissistic abuse, and so do I. Lately, one reoccurring topic or reoccurring question or theme that I get, when I say reoccurring, I mean all the time, like weekly, someone says to me, why do I keep attracting toxic people? Why? And so we're going to talk about this tonight, because first I want to tell people you are not attracting anything. You're not a fly strip. Yes, your pheromones will attract people, but it's not like people go, wait, toxic. Oh, over there. No, most of the time, toxic people are shooting their shot everywhere, to be honest with you. So just so you know, you don't attract them, but there are things that they do and reasons why you are attracted to them.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. We're going to talk about that a little bit.
It's, I think, a really fundamental, huge, I think this is a great topic, and it will garner a lot of attention because it seems to be a predominant theme in today's world. It's even has been for a very long time, but the more that we learn about, human behavior, personalities, different things, and why we attract toxic relationships or specific types of people into our lives, like Dr. Lorman just said, that we don't really attract. But why do they land on us? Why is it that we always seem to land the same person? And just so you guys are aware, just because we're therapists does not mean we're not
human. It doesn't happen to us.
And it doesn't happen to us, because I literally, and I'm full transparency, because that's who I am, an incredibly honest person, regardless of my education, regardless of my training, regardless of what I know, I just ended an insanely toxic relationship.
And literally sorry about that. If you look back at our podcast from last year, Ashley has one as well of like, help. I just got into it. No, she's not a therapist, but she is a DV survivor and advocate and all of that.
And is very aware of why and how and all the things. And Dr. Lorman has also been with a narcissist. And I've also actually had a client who was a clinical psychologist who got duped by a covert narcissist. So just so you're aware, we are not immune to these types of personalities, people, because we all have our own wounding and our life and our journey, we're always learning, and they will present differently. And as we learn and as we go through life and experience, especially with trauma, trauma never goes away. It just manifests itself differently as you move along. You'll heal some aspects, but then it'll show up differently, and then you'll have to learn another lesson around the whole thing. That's quoting Dr. Judith Herman, who was head of the psychiatry department at Harvard for a long time. Okay, so she specializes. She's the one that conceptualized CPTSD, and she is a psychiatrist, and basically said, trauma never goes away. You don't heal completely from trauma. It just shows up differently as you continue to heal in different ways. So
I don't like to say that people have healed.
mm,
And I had even had a client send me this whole long thing that basically said healing is a journey. Like you were saying, it just kind of changes along the way. And even when you feel, this is one thing that I see a lot and I talk to people about a lot. Even when you feel like, I thought I was healing, why did this happen? It's like, you are healing. And when you realize, oh my God, this happened, that's part of the healing, because before you were in it and didn't realize until.
yeah.
So let me kind of go back and explain some things. I do not believe, I am not psychoanalytic, I am not Freudian. I do not believe our first 5 years of our life makes us who we are. And we are either stuck in the oral, anal, phallic, latency, whatever stage.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I don't believe in blaming our parents if we have a shitty life.
Mm-hmm.
What I believe in is that our childhood starts us in the habits of what we get used to and the patterns that we start. And when we have a toxic family and a toxic background, we start learning different behaviors of either coping in that toxic background or becoming toxic ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And after a certain point, your family, you are, as a child, yes, you are a product of your environment. You can't really say or do much to resist, if you will. But as you're getting to be an adult, just because if you had a shitty childhood does not mean you can be a shitty adult. Does not give you permission to be an ass.
Oh, and a lot of people will use that as an excuse because
Yes.
they've had trauma to continue to, use the maladaptive coping strategies they've learned and are ingrained within them that continually hurts other people, or is on a continuum of hurting those around them.
Because I tell people, if you don't like how you're feeling or what you're doing or what's happening, guess what? You can change it. You're allowed to change it. And so learning, and I think learning about our past and why we do things is really important. Our past is what created our morals, our values, our opinions, all of those things. And
Yeah.
how sometimes we develop these inappropriate or inefficient or effective behaviors. Like I'll talk to people that are people pleasers. When they come to therapy and right out the gate, they're talking to me about people pleasing behaviors without any history, I will ask them, did you have a toxic childhood? Did you have a toxic parent? And odds are, and I've actually never had it be a no, it's always been a yes. And they've learned that to maintain the peace, to be the good person, to gain the love that they were hoping to gain, I will just say and be and do. And that carries into, and this is where, as a kid, you learn this behavior. As an adult, it's like, I'm not going to muddy the waters. I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm just going to be that good girl or boy so that that person will like me.
And
so
what attachment style is that, Dr. Lerman?
I am not a big attachment style person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was Heather that was very into those attachment styles, but probably anxious. I would say an anxious.
Preoccupied.
Yeah.
So while you're talking about this, and I love that you're not Freudian, because John Bowlby, who was the one that conceptualized back in the 50s, the attachment theory, was not Freudian at all. He was very much against Freud and his beliefs. And I mean, most therapists to date, bits and pieces, but not really. We've kind of moved away from that, right?
Except for in, I think, South America and Europe, I think they
Yeah,
still have a
they're
lot of
still
Freudian.
very much in Freudian stuff. But Bowlby was the one with Mary Ainsworth back in the late 60s who created the strange situation procedure, which was the study. Oh, hi, balloons. Which basically studied young infants in early toddlerhood and their reaction and their attachment to their parents. This was where basically insecure attachment versus secure attachment was born. So there was three: insecure attachment, and then secure attachment. And with insecure, you had avoidant and you had preoccupied or anxious. And then later on, very much later on, they discovered disorganized. So now there's four attachment styles. Now, when we talk about attachment theory in relation to trauma, it's because of what kind of caregiver you had and how you were parented is what is going to determine your attachment style. Every single person on the planet has one, right? We all have, and again, your behavior, it doesn't mean you'll wind up with a personality disorder. It just means that you have a type of attachment style. And often when you have an insecure attachment style, you are going to repeat your childhood issues and lack of safety in situations that recreates what happened in childhood on a subconscious level. I know that's kind of Freudian, but it's true. And this is what is why people will land back in constant, because if you have not resolved that trauma and you have not resolved and have an understanding of it and where it's all started, you are going to constantly seek out what you couldn't fix when you were a child. What's your thoughts on that,
Oh,
Jodi?
the reason why I say I'm not an attachment style person is because I've had people say to me, well, it's because I'm avoidant. It's because I'm this and that. And it's like, okay, stop using that as an excuse because
It's
that's what
not
people do.
exactly. Yeah.
Because, well, it's because I'm this. It's like, guess what, people? Things can be changed. They can.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
So if you're like, if you,
Absolutely.
I am all for owning things,
Mhm.
but not for, well, it's because I'm an anxious or I'm a avoidant. It's like, okay, let's leave that alone. Okay, that's
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
When you learn, see, here's the thing with toxic behaviors, just like you were saying, we are constantly, like, people pleasers are
Uh-huh.
constantly trying to fill that void. People that
Mhm.
end up with NPD, it's because they are looking for love that
Mhm.
they, whether it was real or perceived, and it, if it was perceived to them, it was real, the love that they never got. And the reason why I say it's their perception is because there can be two kids that are like, we had a great childhood, and the other kid is, no, we didn't, you
No.
know?
Right.
So if whether they did or not, it's their perception. And so they were constantly looking for this love that they never got, and they never will, because they're looking for love that the 6-year-old them did not get.
Exactly.
And they don't know what that feels like at 26 or 46 or 66.
Nope.
And so they keep looking and looking and looking. And since they're not, it's like they're not getting it, they're not feeling it, and they never will.
So would it be appropriate to say that it's sort of the unhealed inner child that is seeking out what they never received as a child, as an adult, on a very subconscious or unconscious level?
Well, sadly though, they'll, it's the unhealed inner child, but it will never be healed.
No.
It will
Yeah.
never, it's not one that actually, now maybe if they got therapy, it's all about the epigenetics. Like, you're
Mhm.
predisposed, kind of, your DNA is the same. It
Mhm.
hasn't been changed, but something in the environment and the biopsychosocial everything
Mhm.
sent you on that path. So unfortunately, they will never heal that inner child, because part of it is they don't want to.
So what's that about then, if they don't want to? Why is it that they wouldn't want to if they're constantly suffering and creating more trauma in their adult life, recreating these haphazard and these very toxic situations that are only causing more harm?
Possibly because thank goodness I'm not one, I don't think. But if you are looking for something that happened at 16 and someone tell or 6 and someone tells you, you know what? You're never gonna, I'm sorry, but you're never gonna get that love. Let's focus on love today.
Mm-hmm.
No, no, I need
Mm.
that love. You know what I mean? It's like
So
they're
what is it that
looking,
you're saying right there? What I'm seeing?
Like
again, it's an invalidation, right? So it's sort of they won't accept it because it's too invalidating. It's too like, but I need it. I need to
yeah,
find some way to nurture and recreate or create or to be able to heal that pain,
I
that
have to
trauma.
go back to that age and I can't never go back to that age.
No, you can't. So
So
this is where different modalities of therapy can be interesting. I've had lots of clients say, what about hypnotherapy and take me back and does it
yeah,
heal and does it this? I've also been trained in and had done myself through my own journey, what they called lifespan therapy, which is where you go back and again, you're kind of under a trance, not really hypnotic, but just more relaxed, where you're going back as an adult, taking your child like self and going back to the traumatic situations and dealing with it as you would as an adult and getting to be able to defend yourself and validate yourself. But does it stick? No.
because also you have, if it happened at, let's say 6, and now someone is 46, you have 40 years of habits and opinions and all of that formed.
Mhm.
And that formed rigid. It's
Mhm.
almost like delusional disorder. You cannot fix delusional disorder
Can't. No.
because
Mm.
they are there. And you
Mhm.
cannot tell someone their delusions are not real.
No, you can't. No,
You cannot.
that's the hardest disorder to work with because it just doesn't work. You
It's
have to
actually
sort of
kind of
focus on.
fun. It was fun in the prison. I had a couple guys in the prison. So it
I
was
bet in the
fun.
prison you would have had fun with that. I've had
Yeah.
a few people where I'm like, oh, this is so, especially for the family members, because they can't wrap their head around the idea of not convincing the person that they have a delusional disorder. They just
No.
can't. They want them to see what isn't there, and that these people are never going to be able to do that. But
So with NPD, it's kind of like the interesting thing though, with delusional disorders, they're not trying to harm people.
no,
To have
no.
delusions of grandeur or this or that or whatever. But NPD, they
Mhm,
are toxic because because they didn't get this love, they
mhm.
hate themselves. They are self-loathing so badly.
But you'll fall on either side of the spectrum because I grew up with a borderline mother. Okay, so one who is incredibly mentally, emotionally, verbally, and sometimes physically abusive. My like until I moved out, and then wound up with a raging eating disorder at 20, right? So uh it's interesting. I'm not a narcissist.
Mhm.
I didn't wind
Right.
up being, I don't have the toxicity. It's usually you'll fall on one end of the spectrum or the other. So the opposite side of narcissism is the over, like the people pleasing and the
Yeah.
codependent and the overly empathetic and wanting to fix everybody else, but
Because you've
avoiding.
been the scapegoat
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah, I was. And I was a scapegoat in my family. My sister was the golden child, and my third was the lost child. Like it's very stereotypical.
Yeah.
Dad was absent. Mom was a raging, absolutely emotionally unstable mess 90% of the time. And so, but I didn't grow up to be the narcissist, but I attract narcissists
You don't
constantly.
attract them, you
Sorry,
are
right.
attracted to them.
No, I'm attracted. I'm not attracted to them. I'm attracted to narcissists because what I'm doing is trying to recreate what I couldn't fix with my mom. My mom never accepted me. She never, ever, ever, ever. I was never good enough. I was always wrong. Even when I knew I was right, she would say things, even when I'm right, I'm wrong. I'm like, or even when I'm wrong, I'm
Wrong, I'm
right.
right. Yep.
Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. You're never going to be right. Like, do you know how incredibly frustrating that is? And so what do I do? I wind up in relationships with men who constantly are illogical and are completely irrational. And I fight and I fight and I fight
Yeah.
and I fight and I fight and I fight and I fight and I fight. And I'm like, validate me, God damn it. And I will stay until my self-worth is so deteriorated and I have nothing left. And then I'm trauma bonded to all shit. And it's so hard to get out.
And then, okay, this is why I had to correct you with you are not attracted to. What happens is when we are and it doesn't even matter if it was a toxic relationship, when something traumatic happens to us,
Mhm.
okay, and we meet someone. Now, this person is narcissist, okay? This person is toxic. We don't know that because they don't come into the date with a shirt that says I am NPD and they don't start spewing and throwing red flags.
They
It is
don't.
probably the only time that they are actually really listening to what you're saying.
Mhm.
And I mean, like they're listening because they're trying to figure out what it is that you're looking for so they can be that.
Mhm.
Now, I want to backtrack for just a minute because NPD, narcissists, do not go for weak people. So people that sit there and go, but I guess I was weak and stupid. No, they are going for someone who is either better looking, higher stature in some way,
Give
personally,
them them.
professionally, looks, so that they can lift them up.
Absolutely.
If I am with someone up here, I am up here too.
Yeah.
So don't beat yourself up saying you were stupid, anybody out there, because no, they are looking for someone who can do something for them. Now,
Absolutely.
they're listening to you for what you're looking for. And I'm not saying don't talk about your past or anything like that, but for example, I told my ex, my late husband was my emotional rock.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need him. I wanted him, but it was like when you're driving on a cliff road and there's no guardrail, you feel a little scared. The guardrail gives you a little security. It might not be able to do anything if you're flying through it, but it gives you some security to drive. Like there's a guardrail there. That was
Mm-hmm.
my husband. He was my guardrail. So I was telling my ex about this, not immediately, but after a lot of conversations. And he was like, I want to be that for you too. Now,
Mm-hmm.
who wouldn't be like, oh, my first thought wasn't red flag, because he didn't say it in a very first date, right out the gate, I'm going to be your man. It was after we had talked about stuff. Those are the kinds of things. That's what they do. They listen, and then they'll be that person,
Yeah, they study you.
not too good to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
true. And they do throw out who they really are, but it's
Yeah.
wrapped in a nice little bow. Like my ex would say, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Because I would tell him, oh my God, all the guys at work, they're
Mhm.
like dating everyone. He's like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. And I'm like, no, you're one of the good
Yeah,
ones.
see, they're playing victim because they want you to feel sorry. You're feeding them. That's the supply that they need. They need
Yes.
self-confidence, right? So that's covert narcissism.
And so they don't do shit and then say they're shitty. They're like the nicest person and throwing in there how bad they are. So they're letting you know. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of their way of
Mm-hmm.
knew who I was. And when even if we were in a toxic relationship, now we meet someone and it's like, oh, this person's actually listening. My toxic ex did not listen,
Yeah,
because by the time you left that relationship, they didn't listen.
no, they didn't. That's
So you
right.
get someone that listens, and we're like, okay, this is what we've wanted. Finally.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's,
Mask slips.
yeah. And I hear things like, okay, but he doesn't hit me, or
Yeah.
he's not as bad, or she is not as bad as my ex. Not yet. Not
Mm-hmm.
yet. So there's that, because, oh my God, someone is actually paying attention to me again.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also that, okay, I might have been wrong about my exes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be wrong this time. And I
Mm-hmm.
have told people, how many times are you trying to prove that this is a nice person, that this is a good person? And like you said, trying to show that it was your mom. Well, you didn't say it exactly, but that your mom was the problem, not you.
Mm-hmm.
So in any other relationship, oh my God, you can't be the problem again.
No, it's just trying to fix what I couldn't
Yes.
ever fix with my mom. It was an impossible situation that never had a solution. There was no solution to the dynamic between me and my mom. So what do I do unconsciously is that I attract the same types of people in, that I repeat the same cycle of abuse with over and over and
I've
over.
asked clients, are you trying to, because you couldn't fix any of the other ones,
Mm-hmm.
are you trying to fix this one?
Mm-hmm. Right. And
Think
then
about that. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's very true. And what's interesting is because I haven't had many relationships throughout my life. I've only had a very few long term. I was married for 13 years, and prior to that, I had one boyfriend between 17 and 20. And then one short 2 year one between that. And then that was pretty much it until the relationship I got into after my marriage. But my mistake there was being that I was pushing 40, thinking that I had all this life experience and we're adults now, and that I'm just going to go fall in love and find this magical, amazing relationship. Now that I have all my shit together and I know what to look for. I know what not to look for. I was very blind to the
Right.
idea that the toxicity is still very much out there. And I wasn't healed from my abusive ex-husband. I thought I was fine. I left that relationship, and it was not hard to leave that relationship. Oddly enough, I was not trauma bonded to my ex-husband. I became trauma bonded to the next person I was with.
Why do you think that was?
I don't think I actually connected the same way. He didn't trigger the same things within me. In the beginning of that relationship with my ex-husband, there was a safety there because I didn't have these overwhelming, powerful, super strong feelings that made me feel like I can't be hurt the same way. And he was a very avoidant attachment, super like not affectionate, not, and I convinced myself that I didn't need that when my love language is physical touch and words of affirmation. So I just lied to myself. I was only 27 and I didn't know a thing about narcissism. I knew nothing about personality disorders. I had no idea. So when I saw blatant narcissism, I recognized later on and I'm like, oh yeah, that wasn't self-confidence. That was just ego. And that was like when he said, I have no sympathy for people, he was basically saying, I don't have empathy. And I don't feel sorry for people and nobody's better than me. Hi, that's not confidence, that's narcissism.
But we
So
take it at the time.
exactly. But the reason why I wasn't trauma bonded to him was because I didn't have that vulnerability with him ever. The next person I said I left that relationship, it was a loveless marriage by the end of it and super abusive. I moved on to the next person. I let my guard down. I let the vulnerability down and then boom, that person was the person who pulled out my deepest insecurities. And then I was trapped for almost 4 years. It's a long time knowing what I know.
And the thing is, even though knowing what you know, again, in context, in everything, because it was different, a different type of toxicity, again, we get and I'm not saying this is not you, but he didn't hurt me, but he
Mm.
didn't do this to me, but he didn't do that to me, but my ex did that to me. So
They
it's
were just that the
different.
narcissism was so different. My ex is narcissistic sociopathic. This guy, they both had a history of conduct disorder. Like you could probably label them both with traits of ASPD, 120%. But this guy triggered my deepest insecurity because he was a womanizer. My ex was not a womanizer. He never made me jealous. He never tried. I could care. I trusted him. I didn't have those issues with him. He was all about money, status, manipulating, coercing people, and just everything was about having me serve and just be this little puppet. Where this relationship, this guy constantly did everything in his power to bring me down to his level of, making me jealous and liking photos and doing and then finding out cheating and infidelity and betrayal. And based on my history and the way that I've grown up, there's nothing worse that I couldn't, there was not a worse man on the planet for me due to my own insecurities based on that. Whereas to other people, like, yeah, you cheat on me, I'm out. It doesn't even affect me. Where it's me, it's like, oh my God, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not. It triggered every deep wound within me. It's what kept me there for 4 years.
And
And actually, Jodi and I figured that out a couple weeks ago.
the thing is that you've said things to him and you may not remember them, and they were probably, I'm going to say, pretty innocent,
Mhm.
that he picked up on. I'm gonna bet, and he may or may not ever admit it if you ever got him in a court of law, whatever, but I'm gonna bet that he heard what your insecurities were, or he knew what your insecurities were,
Mhm.
and that just made it all the more better for him.
No, I'll never forget in the beginning, 2 months in, and I'm leaning over. I've had 3 babies, so I've got loose skin. I'm not, right? I don't have my eating disorders issues anymore. They've been gone for a long time, but I've got this, and I was literally bent over and I was holding my stomach and he noticed it. First thing he said was like, you can fix that, you know. He's a gym rat, he's an actor, he was a model. This guy was all about appearances, which actually made me angry because I hate this about myself. This is my biggest insecurity right here. I wish I wasn't like that. I wish I could go back in time and focus more about who I was rather than what's been so ingrained as part of my personality is relying so much on this. And he was all of that. He was mirroring everything I hated about myself. So as soon as he said that, guess what? I became fixated on. I'm going to have to get rid of that loose skin now. And the only way to do it is through surgery. And it took me a very long time to even admit to anybody that I actually went down that road to do that because I couldn't let it go. And I knew in that moment, this guy's not good for me. He is not safe.
It doesn't matter though, because he's triggered that area.
Mhm.
And
But
so
I'm
even,
not perfect. Mhm.
and so even though we know, because my ex used to say to me all the time, I'm so glad you love to work out because I love to work out. So I'm so glad you love to work out because
And
my
what
ex
is that doing? That's
making me,
reinforcing the insecurity.
yeah. And so if I don't work out, I was like, oh shit. And so
I'm
I
not working
yeah,
out. He's not going to love me enough. I'm not going to be enough, or I'm not going to look a certain way for him. And then all of a sudden, you go down the rabbit hole and all the distorted thinking, and it's just
yeah.
a nightmare, right?
And I'm going to tell you, when it comes to, even though we're psychologists, clinicians, whatever, and it's healing is a definite journey.
Mhm.
There are things that you may encounter years later that trigger you, but
Mhm.
luckily it doesn't necessarily trigger you as bad as it does in the beginning. But even now, I work out a lot, a lot. Not what my body shows, sadly, in my opinion, but I work out. Let's see. It is February, what is it? This 18th, and I have done
The 19th.
100, the 19th, and I've done 114 workouts on my iFit equipment from
Wow.
January 1st to today.
Mhm.
So, and they're, like at least half hour workouts or more, because I still have issues. I have body dysmorphic disorder, and I don't believe that I do, but I know that I do. But that's part of the disorder, is you don't believe you do, even though you have it. But
Yep.
almost, sadly, I hate to admit this, especially in front of whoever listens, but I think about that often. I don't care for my ex. I have complete apathy. He doesn't matter anymore. But the whole working out and weight, and him telling me he saw his ex who was heavy. Oh my God, she's put on so much weight and all that. That still, to this
Triggers me.
day, when I work out, I think about that. I
Yeah.
think about, if I ever see him, I want him to know, and I don't want to see him, but I want him to know that I'm still working out, that I didn't work out for him. I've
Mhm.
worked out since I was 14 because I've had eating disorder issues. It's not a good thing.
No,
But
it's not.
I don't want him to think. And I know that that's not okay. So this is the difference between at least being a psychologist. I know, so I do work on it. I
Mhm.
actively work on it and try, and I'm aware of it.
Mhm.
That doesn't necessarily make it okay. So
But this is the thing, just so that everybody is aware, right? Um, And actually, the last podcast we did talking about TV and therapists and psychology, we're all just people.
yeah.
We all have our own issues. We're all on these mental health spectrums. So just because you're a psychologist or a clinician doesn't mean that you don't have the same issues that everybody else does, because it is a journey. It's always manifesting itself in different ways. But the only, like she's saying, the difference is, even though on a rational and we're aware, doesn't mean that those issues don't still plague us
Mhm.
consistently. And like I said, knowing I left a narcissist just to land up with another one, you'd think, what the fuck? Why don't I should know better? Did I not retain any information through my education and programs? It's just really, again, and here's the crazy part. I worked with a clinical psychologist that was like, how it's making me actually doubt my clinical skills, how I got duped by this person. And I said, because we're all just people at the end of the day, and narcissists, especially because of their ability to mirror you and mirror and mirror and mirror and make you think that you're the soul. And we always there's this hope, this perpetual hope that we're going to meet a great person. So we fantasize and we idolize or idealize,
Romanticize.
we idealize, and we also fall in love with potential, because we're all people at the
Oh
end of
my God. Potential is what keeps us in relationships.
it. It's the
That
potential. Yeah.
that that right there, I tell people so much when they're like, but I miss this and I miss that. I'm like, you miss the
Yeah.
potential.
You miss the
You
potential. It's
don't
not
miss,
real. It's a
yeah.
distortion. It's,
Because
again, reality checking,
in
right?
the beginning, they gave you that potential. In
Yeah.
the beginning,
Yeah.
they future, what is it?
Future faking,
Future
I
faking.
love bombing, everything.
and
They
they
want to go back
chose
to the beginning
to.
of the dopamine hit you got in the beginning of the relationship,
Yes.
but you're
And
never
oh
going to get
my
past
God,
it.
if only they wouldn't lie, they wouldn't cheat, they wouldn't gaslight, they wouldn't manipulate, they wouldn't be who they actually are, we
Exactly.
could have.
Yeah.
We could. We
So
all want that. And
I
they
think
showed us.
I think it's really important that if you're watching this and that, again, if you're trying to avoid getting back into these toxic unions or you struggle with this, again, is really checking in with yourself and that you're not falling in love with potential, you're not romanticizing, you're keeping everything as face value with what's right in front of you. Because again, with a pathological liar or a narcissist or somebody who's got pathology of cluster
Toxic.
B, anything toxic, you have to be careful and watch the actions meeting the words, because if their actions don't meet their words are fucking bullshit. It's a lie.
Here,
Watch the actions closer.
this is
Words.
really important. And this is also for you, Bri. This is for
Oh,
all of us.
I know.
Before you get into any relationship, when we come out of a toxic relationship, whether it's family or romantic, when we get out of a toxic relationship, it is really important. And I cannot stress this enough. Go to therapy to learn to love yourself, to
Mhm.
learn to be okay with being by yourself, to
Mhm.
love being by yourself.
Mhm.
Because when you get to the point, and again, this is a journey, so this is not 100% you'll be okay. But when you get to the point where you're like, I don't need anyone in my life, I am really good by myself. And the next person I meet, if they do not add to my life
Mhm.
with where I am today, then I don't need them. When you can get to that point, and you
Mhm.
can, people can,
There. I'm there, people.
that's
Just so you
when
know.
you can get into a healthy relationship. Because at that point, anyone that you're on a date with, you're going to hear they're not going to add benefit
Mhm.
to my life.
I just want to add this for, and again, people, as a therapist, right? But I, the first time, and this is 100% transparency. So some of you will maybe not respect this or think that I'm like, shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But I know with the transparency, a lot of people will relate. And I'm a very honest person. And I like to share that I'm not this all magical being that's perfect because I'm so fucking far from it.
Oh, I embrace my
I
crazy.
embrace I
I embrace
embrace
my
my
crazy.
brokenness and my crazy. So I'm going to say right now, for the first time in my life, I'm 44 years old and I do not want to be with anyone. I don't want to seek out another person. I have no desire to. I need to heal,
Mhm.
especially with whatever I've been trying to get out of this union for a very long time. It was nothing but an unhealthy attachment. It wasn't even love. It was just simply an unhealthy attachment. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to break. And what I came to the conclusion just a few days ago was I choose me.
Mhm.
I love me more than I love this situation. It's the only thing that will break a trauma bond is to actually believe it and feel it. You
You know
have to
what's interesting?
feel it.
When you say that it wasn't even love, I remember when I was with my ex, and there was this one of my colleagues, and we carpooled and we were talking. She goes, "Why are you with him? You don't even like him."
Yeah, see, I didn't even like him.
And
Same,
I
same.
was like, "What do you mean?" And it's really interesting because when I thought about it, I was the one. Everybody thought he was the one that didn't want to get married. I was the one that didn't want to get married. And I said, because, and it's so interesting when I look back, because I said, I don't want it to spoil my other marriage, my husband. It was such a wonderful, he was my best friend, my partner, my soulmate. We worked together, played together. It was everything. And I said, I don't want to get married to him because I feel like that will ruin the
You had
sanctity
with
of
your,
what
with your,
marriage
yeah,
was.
exactly. That was,
That is so telling right there.
yeah, you know what? I never moved in with this guy. He begged me to for a long time, and I'm like, hell no. My body knew from the very beginning he wasn't
Yeah.
safe. And it's
And
not
you
for my children
see,
and not for the kind of work he has and not for anything. It was just sort of a situationship that I got
yeah.
myself literally enmeshed in, and it was simply an unhealthy attachment.
I said, this is better than nothing.
Yeah, better than nothing, because the thought of being alone in the emptiness because I hadn't healed from my ex and thinking that that's what I need to make me feel human, to make me feel alive. Again, it does come down to exactly what Dr. Lerman just said, is you have to, oh, I can't stress it enough. You have to heal on your own without filling that void with another person, because it will only end in destruction
Yes.
and more trauma for you. You have to learn. And now I'm not saying that we're designed to be alone, because we're not. We're humans. We're meant for human connection and to be in a monogamous situation. That's basically what we are. We're designed for that. But there's a difference between being happy alone versus I have to be happy. I
With
have to be in a relationship to be happy. No, that's never going to work. If you can't love you, and I mean true self-love, how on earth can you expect another person to love you? You
and
can't.
you are looking for that person to fill that
The
void.
void, yes. I've done it ever since I was a teen. I remember being a kid, if I can just find a boy or a man to love me, because my mom doesn't love me and my dad doesn't love me and
And
nobody
I
loves
will be
me fully, then
validated.
I will be validated, and then that will make me feel whole. It'll make me feel like a person, like a human, like I exist. That's what I held on to my entire life up until leaving my ex-husband and going down on this journey and learning for myself.
I've had clients and friends, but I've had clients that are like, they get into another relationship and it's good. It's good.
Mhm.
And I tell them, okay, but wait a minute. Your life is now enmeshed in his, and everything that you had that was yours is now you're doing
Yes.
everything for him. That's toxic
Mhm.
also. And oh my God, he's gone on vacation or he's gone for work and I'm so sad. And it's like,
There's no
red
identity there.
flag, exactly.
They've completely invoked themselves into the other person. And again, if you don't love yourself, that's what happens. You
Yes.
will latch onto that person. You will expect them to love you, to fill you, to make you feel something. And then all of a sudden, when that relationship falls apart, guess who goes along with it? All of you.
Yeah.
You invested everything about you into that person. You no longer have a sense of self or an identity, or didn't even have one to begin with.
And that's what happens in a toxic relationship. So when you
Exactly.
come out of one,
Mhm.
before you get into any relationship, that's a perfect example of you need to find, and I don't like to use the word need. It would behoove you to find your you. That you that's been there. It's there. It just is pushed down.
Depressed, and you lose you when you're in toxic relationships. Again, with
Big
narcissism,
time.
you lose your sense of
Big
self and your
time.
identity because they pull it away, regardless of whether you had it. Every relationship I got into, I had my sense of self there, and then it would get stripped away because, as a people pleaser, a codependent, fawning response, I would just completely invoke myself right into that person, let go of all of the stuff that was part of me and my identity into the other person to appease them. And then when it didn't work, guess what went along with it? It's what left that black hole of emptiness, and the pain and the sadness is because, again, you go back to then feeling like you don't exist.
So think about your relationship. And if that person is not there for a day or two, you guys don't see each other, whatever. If you feel so depressed, so sad, so down, don't know what to do, that's not okay.
No, it's not. That's, again, you don't have enough going on in your own life. You've given up everything about you to that person.
And that's what
Listen.
MPD, that's what toxic people do. They will isolate you. And they isolate you. If you came out of a toxic relationship and all of a sudden someone is showering you with gifts
Fucking
and
run.
love bombing. And let's say, oh my God, I left a toxic relationship and now I have no money. So I'm living in a studio apartment and they are suddenly paying your bills for you.
Be careful.
It's not necessarily out of love.
Well, no, of course not. It's out of there's a need that needs to be
Control.
met there. They're using you for something.
And
But again,
that's control.
oh,
They're controlling you.
mhm.
When you are now reliant upon them, think about this in a relationship. Are you reliant upon that person
Mhm.
for your happiness, for your
Dependence.
finances,
Mhm.
for your going out and doing things, your activities? Are you
Mhm.
reliant upon them? That's a big question.
Yeah, again, dependency. How dependent are you, or have you lost your independence? Because again, if you go into a relationship, there should be no loss of independence.
No.
There's collaboration and there's working together and there's give and take and working together on things, but there shouldn't be a sense of loss of independence and identity and doing the things that you once did before and now you don't do because you're trying to appease the other person. The
Okay.
amount of times I can tell you, sorry, the
No,
amount
go
of times I
ahead.
can tell you that I was in a situation where I gave up certain things that I was doing because I was so scared it would cause a reaction with my ex and then that person, and it would start a fight or it trigger his insecurities, that I just stopped doing it because it wasn't worth the confrontation.
Not only that, this is something to think about too. They don't mind when you go out with your friends once a month when they're not around.
Mm-hmm.
See, my ex minded. This one, he doesn't mind. He lets me go out once a month when he's not around.
Mm-hmm.
That's not minding. Why is it once a month? That's a little breadcrumb there to show you that, look, I'm a good guy or girl, and you can go out with your friends the one time a month that I'm going to be busy. But any other time,
Mm-hmm.
don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the two of us and my plans and my decisions and my whatever. I have
Here's
seen that way too many times. People saying, well, my ex was really controlling and took me from my friends. This one that I'm with has not, they're fine with me going with my friends. Okay, how often have you gone out with your friends? Like 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 last month.
mm-hmm.
And how often did you used to go out with your friends? Like every week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You stop doing, or you're giving up all your time with friends and friendships to be all encompassed
Yeah.
partners and all in. That's not healthy either. Again, there's no balance, there's no equilibrium. You're going black and white. You're either all in or you've got that dichotomous thinking going on. You
Yeah.
got to be really careful. A healthy relationship doesn't look like any of the stuff that we're talking about. But
No.
here's the deal. Why is it that you keep going back? So that's what this podcast is really.
Okay. Why do
Why
you keep
are
going
we
back?
going back? Why do we keep going back? Why do we keep doing it? Take the lead on this, Jodi.
A huge reason is because you did not allow yourself to learn about yourself, to love yourself, to be yourself, to find yourself, to heal as much as that journey is, to the point of, I do not, just like Bri said, I don't need a man in my life. For me, I don't. I am perfectly fine with
Mhm.
my life with no man. Would I like someone?
Yeah, we will always like someone, but we don't
Sure.
need someone. There's a difference.
But do I need someone? Do I now know that it is not better than nothing? Yes.
Mhm.
When you can say being alone, I am fine. I go out, I have friends, I entertain, I do things. I am good.
Mhm.
Would I, if someone does not add spark joy in my life,
Mhm.
like literally spark joy, I don't need that.
This is another thing that you'll start. Sorry, Jodi, I didn't mean to cut
No,
you
go
off.
ahead. Go ahead.
This is where you also know that you're healing too, is it's not just in intimate relationships. You'll start detoxifying your life around you. I've noticed myself in the last few years, in particular, the last 4 years, ever since leaving my ex-husband, there's been a group of people that I've been like, nope, no more. Nope, no more. Nope, no more. Like literally protecting my energy. I meet new people all the time. I'm a very social person and a fairly, I'd like to say, always been somewhat of an extroverted person, although I've become a little bit more internalized over the years.
Me too.
Especially with COVID and different things, and just dialed it back a little bit. I like my space. I like my own time. I like my quiet. But the one thing I have recognized is as soon as I meet people that I used to just be all like, yeah, great. I don't, whatever, doesn't matter. And I don't want to judge anybody. I don't want to, and I was so worried about thinking I'm judging people. But now I can look at people and go, nope, I'm not hanging out with you. I'm not spending any time with this person. I don't want to be around this energy. I have a very good friend of mine who struggles with boundaries, very, very, very codependent to the point where She just continues to let people walk all over, but she justifies their behavior. But, but it doesn't really bother, like literally has no awareness of healthy or not healthy, no boundaries at all. And when I say, I love you and I'll hang out with you all day long, but I'm not going to be hanging around those guys and I'm not going to be hanging around with that chick. No offense, but I can see the toxic written all over the wall and the unhealthy behavior. And that's not good or healthy for my energy. I need my peace, and that does not bring peace. Yeah, I get it. You're right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, but there's not enough healing on that side. But with myself, who used to be exactly like that, doesn't work for me anymore. Again, it's not just intimate relationships. You will start to protect your health, your peace of
Yep.
mind, your calmness, your tranquility at all costs. And this is when we say we're not attracting toxic people, but your vibe attracts your tribe. There is
Yeah.
something to be said. If you continue to hang out with what's blatantly not good for you, that's right in front of you, then things are not going to change for you.
It's funny that you say that too, because I have been more of, I'm tired of reaching out,
Mm-hmm.
tired of spending energy.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the point, and I will say this ad nauseum: therapy, 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 therapy. When I left my relationship, I literally thought, I didn't internalize this. I'm a psychologist. I didn't internalize it. As soon as
Mm-hmm.
I left, it was like, oh my God, I'm a horrible psychologist. I internalized everything. And I went to therapy. I had to.
I have a therapist.
I went to
Bad
therapy.
clinicians if we didn't have therapists.
Yeah. So there is zero wrong with therapy. I will push therapy.
No, we promote this. This is how we
Big
grow and we get healthy. Just because, again,
Yeah.
we need people that have different introspection than we do to be able to help us grow to see things that we can't see because we're all humans and we all have blind spots. And we will continue to have them as we move along. It's why in Canada, anyway, I have to continue with supervision constantly because it's one of those things. It's how you grow, right? And it comes down to your core competencies. So the more that I have supervision and I have a therapist who's overseeing me and some of my clients and supervising what I'm doing is like, okay, that's good. Well, what do you think about this? And what about this perspective? And you're go, oh, I didn't even see it that way. That's really cool. That's how we grow.
Mhm. Also, people saying, well, why they look back, hindsight is 2020.
It sure is.
Hindsight is devoid of emotion and
Mhm,
devoid of context.
mhm,
So stop beating yourself up
mhm,
if you are. Why didn't I see this? Why didn't I know that? Because in the moment that it's happening, you have other things going on. There's emotion, there's feelings, there's everything in context.
mhm.
Outside of context, looking back, it's not worth beating
Well,
yourself
it's
up.
also meeting a need. You have to remember that hindsight is 2020 and it's so easy. And I know I'm probably going to go through the same things, just ending this thing. I knew better. Out of anybody, I knew better. Why the fuck did it take me so long to break this? But
Because
again,
it
it's
wasn't isolated like it is
exactly.
now.
No, and it's also the exploratory part is like peeling back some of the layers that I had no ability. There's so many things that it could have been, but really, what's the triggering point? What was it? But really, it, like choosing me over some blatant, to some people would have been a minor issue, but because my whole relationship was built on no trust, because the betrayal trauma and the infidelity and the constant womanizing, oh, thumbs up, and my own insecurities,
You're
it
getting
only
so
took,
much validation from Zoom today.
no, it's great, balloons and thumbs up.
I love it.
It was literally one little thing where he used, as disgusting as this sounds, I caught him womanizing to his children, and he didn't think I was on the phone listening. He thought I'd hung up. And so he was checking out another woman and he was asking his kids. And I busted him. And as soon as I told him, he's like, I knew you were listening. And I just thought I'd throw
I
that in
was
there.
just going to say, I think he knew you were listening, though, to be
No,
honest.
but no, he didn't. He didn't know I was
Are you
listening.
sure? Because he wouldn't have cared one
No.
way or another.
No, because he would have never used that because that would have been my biggest triggering thing because we're trying to heal from that.
Oh,
He's trying to be good and that he's not doing that anymore. But I busted him and then he tried to gaslight me to say that he was listening. So he intentionally said that. The two most fucked up things about that is that why would you punitively use something that would hurt me to my core, knowing what you've already done, and do that when you know that would be the end of us because I already don't trust you and I'm struggling to trust you and you invalidate me all the time anyway. And then and also I was calling your name trying to get your attention to say I'll be 47 minutes. I hadn't hung up the phone. I was looking at my Google Maps. And if you actually knew I was listening, you would have heard me. Your phone was in your fucking pocket. You got busted asking your kids, checking out this other woman, and I heard you, and maybe it was a minor thing to most people, but because of all the lack of trust, the womanizing, the betrayal, the disrespect, it was such a blatant form of disrespect. And the way that he gaslit me and then blamed me for being a creep, I was creeping on him and creeping on the phone call, which I wasn't doing at all, was enough for me to be like, this is so embarrassing for you because you were using the lamest gaslighting, the most pathetic form because it's so not believable. Like you're trying, so you're grasping at every straw you can. And I know him well enough that he would have never used another woman to purposely hurt me. He
Yeah.
hurts me by invalidating me constantly and not listening to me and gaslighting and deflecting and not taking accountability and lying pathologically. So in that moment, he lied. He could have just said, "Oh, you heard that, did you? Yeah, that probably wasn't a cool thing to say."
They're not going to admit anything.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But it took that for me to go, "Oh God, I can't handle the disrespect anymore. Like I love myself too much. I know I love myself just enough to just I can't even believe that." And I knew I couldn't fucking trust you. I knew it. And that was it. I blocked him, I deleted him out of my phone, and he's gone permanently.
The one
And
good
I
thing
would
about
never
not
able
having
to do that
love in the
before.
first place, even if it's a trauma bond, is that it is easier to, once it's off, it's off.
It's well, again, there's something, it was like a switch had flipped. And I was waiting for that the whole time. I'm like, I'll do it when I finally, and when you finally had enough, or it triggers you so much to the point where you're like, where's your self-respect? Like I have to have something here. And it was just so blatantly obvious with what he was doing and the way that and he tried to continue to gaslight. And he's like, you're crazy. And of course you're gonna think that. And I'm telling you the truth. And okay, it was distasteful. It was just a joke. I'm like, what is it? A joke? Or you did it punitively, purposely, or you're actually lying about both things and you actually just got busted and you just can't tell me the truth.
So what, with my ex, I tried to be friends after I caught him.
Oh, that would
After
be hard.
not speaking, well, I didn't speak to him. Like literally, I broke up with him via text. I said I'm out, and then I didn't speak to him or acknowledge him or deal with him for 2 months. And I
Mhm.
worked with him and had to deal with him every single day.
Oh, that's
But I
awful.
had, luckily, my colleagues and coworkers dealt with him for me because
Mhm.
they hated him too. And so I didn't have to deal with him for 2 months. He tried his hardest, and I did not have a word with him. And then
Yeah.
after 2 months, I sent him a little letter just basically about him hurting my son more than anything, and thought, okay, maybe we can salvage a friendship after 10 years together.
Yeah.
I don't regret doing that because in trying to do that, I found out like he said, let's go to therapy. I said, okay. And he was already seeing this person that he denied seeing. And then in therapy, the therapist said, you cannot see her if you want to be in this relationship. The next day, he was like, I don't think I gave her a chance. And I was like, I'm out. I'm done. Bye bye. And literally, I was.
That's how I feel now. That's
Everything
the
just
same
shut off.
situation. Yeah, it's just shut off. Sorry, I'm going to turn that off. Yeah, that it's just shut off. I just completely shut down.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get out of this for 4 years, like almost 4 years. Right from the beginning, I knew it was bad. But again, it was that moment, just like you're saying
Yeah.
right
And
now,
it
where
just
it was
literally
black
shut
and white.
off.
It was like a switch. And it was like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
Never look back.
And I literally went like this. I was in his office, his area, and he goes, I don't think I gave her enough an opportunity. And I'm like, I'm out. And I turned around and I walked away. I was literally
Yeah.
like, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I was. And I was like, in my head, it was like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
there's
that's
nothing.
exactly what it is. There's nothing. I didn't even like this person. In fact, I hated him. I fucking hated him and I couldn't get out. Like again, and yet I work with people and try to get them to heal from all of this crap. but I fucking couldn't get out. I felt like the biggest hypocrite, the imposter. All therapists have imposter syndrome, just so you know. We all have imposter syndrome. We're all like, we'll help you and we're great and we know all these things. And then we're like, but fuck, are we just big liars?
Oh, no, I'm gonna correct you right there because let me
No,
tell
I'm saying
you,
that's what we feel with the imposter
there
syndrome.
are some therapists that feel like they're perfect. They have no issues. Those are the ones to be really afraid of. I
Oh,
work
those are
with some of those.
narcissistic therapists. You have to be very careful of people that think they're perfect and have no flaws because it's not.
I had a colleague who was schizophrenic
Mm,
and felt like she was above everybody and then went off her meds and had a
psychotic
break
break.
and had to go to the hospital. But when you find a clinician, I don't go to a clinician who's totally crazy. I mean, just don't. And crazy is, don't go to someone who doesn't have their shit together. However,
Well, you have to, it takes a while for you to sort of figure that out. My marriage counselor, this very well-known UBC um, clinician who had his PhD in social work and worked at the psychiatry department at UBC, who was on the board of feminists, women's rights. Not long after my husband was out of the picture, made an unbelievably inappropriate comment regarding my past history of how I feel like I've been how do I say this? My sexual history of how I've been viewed by men and that I've never had anybody actually be gentle and in an intimate way. And I've never been, let's just say made love to versus fucked, right? I'm going to be real raw here. And he said, wow, it's a really good thing I'm sitting over here as your therapist because boy, I could show you a thing and that literally tried to not throw up in my mouth because he knew everything about me. I was mortified. I got up and that was the last time I ever went back and then
but see,
found out.
there you go. So you don't want a clinician that doesn't have their shit together. That is a mess. And you walked away. So if you have a clinician that's got more issues than you have,
Which never posed that
call
before.
them.
He was good with both of us and seemed to have his shit together, but
Oh,
he was a predator. He
yeah.
actually purposely played me. Oh, on women's rights and I'm on the board and I'm on this. Don't think for a second, just because they're a therapist, that they're not a narcissist or they're not a sociopath.
Oh my God. There are sadly,
Too many.
I've seen them in psychiatry a lot more than I've seen them in psychology, but I've seen them in psychology a lot too.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
hate to
I
say it,
can't.
but buddy, what's his face? The guy that plays the psychiatrist off Chicago Med, I love him. Oliver something his name. Not all of them are that lovely.
Watch The Shrink Next Door. Please.
I'm looking it up.
Please watch it
Yeah,
because that is a psychiatrist with MPD who real life, it's a true story, like totally abuses his clients.
yeah, it's sick.
Really bad.
And it does happen out there. So people, here's the thing, just what we're gonna say is it has to be a good fit. Just make
Yeah.
sure that you're no, and it's really sad, but it's no different than a dentist, a doctor, another
Yeah.
professional that can, because again, people can hide.
Okay. I knew my parents had a friend who was a physician who was morbidly obese and smoked.
Mhm.
Now, I was like, I would not want that for my physician, to be honest. He might be a great guy, but he's literally huge and smoking when we all know that's not okay. You don't want a clinician who you can tell is therapizing themselves. Like I will tell my clients, yes, I will self-disclose at times when it is necessary and stuff like that. But I will also tell them, look, part of being a psychologist is yes, we all have issues. And I don't like to use absolutes, but we all do. Hopefully, we've learned how to kind of deal with those issues, and that's why we can help you. If
Well,
that makes sense.
that's what makes a good clinician is somebody that has enough self-awareness. They have issues, but at least they've dealt with them enough that it's not hindering therapy with our clients, right?
My God, if
But
you
we
think my life is perfect, I just make
no.
it look like it is. No, I'm just kidding.
I think one of the most beautiful, oh, you're hilarious. I think one of the most beautiful moments when I watch back when Dr. Marsha Linehan got up in front of people back at the psychiatric institution in the South that she was institutionalized at back in 2011, and working with all the greats out there like Otto Kernberg and Bessel van der Kolk and like all the major, right? Because she was a social psychologist and her whole thing was developing a therapy for people who were highly suicidal and self-harming and BPD, borderline. She was told by Kernberg and others because they saw the scars on her arms and they're like, were you ever institutionalized? And she's like, yeah. And they said, don't ever tell anybody that. You're a psychologist, you're a doctor. You can't share that with anybody because it puts you in a vulnerable situation of whatever. And you know what she said when she got up in front of her whole family that were still with her, along with a room full of people at the institution where she was at the, in the psychiatric hospital, where she came out and said, this is where my journey started.
Mm-hmm.
I was deemed the most untreatable, unfixable patient on the ward in 1968, and I was diagnosed with schizophrenia because borderline personality disorder didn't exist back then. And so she was heavily medicated. She would cut herself and throw herself off tables at any chance she got. And she was deemed the most uncurable patient on the ward. So she said, my goal in life is to find something to get people to come back from hell because I had to figure it out on my own. She said, I would have been, being a psychologist now, diagnosed myself with BPD. But she was the one that created dialectical behavioral therapy, which is what treats people with BPD and highly suicidal ideation. And she told she said, the reason why I'm telling you is because I don't want to die a coward.
Mm-hmm. I think I told you, I had a friend who was like, why in the world would you ever tell people that you have bipolar? I'm like, why not?
Well,
Why
again,
would I not?
because you're the best person that understands depression and mood
Right.
disorders because you have one.
Just like I tell my clients, if they come to me with toxic backgrounds or in a toxic relationship, I will tell them, I know. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
And I can help you because I know. I worked with narcissistic with NPD in my postdoctoral internship. But until I was in the
Relationship.
it it changes. Just like I know grief and loss, but until I lost my husband and then my parents, I know
Yeah,
it from a whole different point of view.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
know developmental disabilities because my son is on the spectrum from a whole different. Now, does that mean that I'm an expert because I've been through it? No, but it means that I understand. I tell my clients this all the time. I understand. I
Well,
understand how you're hurting. I understand how you're beating yourself up for not seeing this before.
because you have a level of empathy that nobody else can have because you,
Exactly.
that's why it's your level of empathy. Not to say that you're not an empathetic person, but until you experience this, I have a friend writing her dissertation on this right now who says, I don't have trauma. And so can you be a very effective trauma therapist if you've never had it? And this is what her whole dissertation is on. And I know my personal thoughts on that. You might be able to relate to a certain extent and you can understand it, but you can't empathize the way that people who've been through it can
Yeah.
empathize. It's just impossible. You have to actually empathize.
However, because I had someone say, I worked in a narcotic treatment program. I ran a narcotic treatment program. And I said, no, I've never been addicted to opioids because I'm allergic to everything. Never been addicted to heroin or anything like that. However, I have other similar issues. So I understand. No, I don't understand that. You don't always necessarily need to know, like, my trauma was not an abusive parent, but I understand trauma.
So
So
I'm going to guess this. I'm going to take a stab at it here because we both have the same history with eating stuff. That's the addiction. My eating disorder is my OCD. It's my addiction. I've never had a substance addiction. I don't have a drug addiction, alcohol addiction, nothing, never in a million years. But what I am addicted to is controlling my food and my body.
yes, exactly. So when I
Ah,
told them I don't have drug, but I have other things. So you don't necessarily, someone had asked me, do you need a therapist that has been through the exact thing? Some of it, some things I say no.
oh,
Now, death and grief, when my husband passed away, I went to therapy and they had been divorced. So no, that didn't work the same way because they really didn't understand, to be honest.
Right.
Some things, yes, it is good to have a therapist that has been through it. And other times you don't necessarily like, I'm sorry, you're going to hate me. People are going to hate me for this, but a lot of chemical dependency counselors
Mhm.
have not been sober long enough
Yeah, I know.
that they're the best person necessarily. Yeah, they can relate, but I guess my bias comes from I have seen way too many chemical dependency, and this is not all of them, that have been selling drugs and
Mhm.
doing drugs with their clients.
Here,
So, yeah.
here's another one. There was a eating disorders clinic back in the 80s and early 90s that became world renowned called the Montereau Clinic, run by a PhD candidate studying psychology that had two daughters with anorexia.
Oh.
She opened up, there's the balloons again. Such a happy topic, right? I read the book. It was called Anorexia's Fallen Angel. This was when I was battling my eating disorder at 20. And it was like reading a book that they wrote about me. I was so textbook. It was so crazy how textbook I was. But this clinic got shut down and it became renowned because it took in two British twins who were morbidly emaciated. And it wound up all over the news, talk shows picked it up. But her name was Peggy Claude Pierre, and it ran out of the city I grew up in on the island, Victoria. And they were taking in 50-pound grown women who were so ill, they couldn't walk. They were barely alive. Their hearts were barely beating, and just refeeding them enough to then get them to work with more emaciated, really sick patients. And again, when they finally figured out what was happening and how unethical it was, because you're taking people who have not recovered from an eating, not even close to physically even recovering, let alone mentally and psychologically recovering from an eating disorder, dealing with people who are even more sick. And it got shut down.
And
So
that's
again, when
what
we talk
happens.
about ethical behavior with addictions,
Yeah.
people that are not recovered enough, that are like, oh, I want to help. I remember at the end of my eating disorder, and when I was coming out the other side, I'm like, I want to go into this. And my psychologist said to me, no, you don't. Nope, no, no, hell no,
Yeah.
no, 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 because
Yep.
all it will do is retrigger you and pull you
Yep.
right in.
I was going to get my PhD in because it's in health psychology, clinical, but health psychology, and with eating disorders. And I was told don't.
No,
And not for that reason, because I didn't tell the person that I had an eating disorder,
no.
but I am so glad that I did not, because I know every single day would have been a trigger.
It would have been a trigger, and you can't heal. You can't heal. As my sister works in eating disorders and she hates it. She wants out with children because again, families have to be involved and it's very complex. You're dealing with other mental health issues along with it usually.
Yeah.
But the best thing I ever did was not go into that
Yeah,
side.
me too. But helping, okay, so going back, let's because it's getting, we got to wrap this up. Sorry, the alcohol's kind of hitting me.
Yeah, I know we're way over, but yeah.
But so we are gonna breach the broach, not breach. Oh my goodness gracious. I have not eaten. I probably
Yeah,
should.
no, that's why I ate my grilled
Um,
cheese sandwich and my energy drink.
but breach the subject, broach this subject again is so to wrap this up, you do not attract, but yes, you hang out, and that's what kind of you're looking for. You're looking for someone who's listening to you and caring about you. So the way to stay away from getting into another toxic relationship, it's not foolproof, but it's the best way, is to go to therapy and heal yourself and get to the point where you know, I don't need anybody that does not benefit my life. And I know what benefits my life. Being with someone just to be with someone is not benefiting my life.
And if you are the person, I'm just going to emphasize on this, that knows that they are struggling so bad that when a relationship falls apart and you were so broken and you've got that black hole and that emptiness and you're seeking out a quick fix to get rid of that pain, you know you need to be in therapy. You
And
need
you
to
will get into another toxic relationship if that
be
is
another
you.
toxic. That's exactly what's going to keep
Yeah.
perpetuating the cycle is because you're not healing yourself. You're looking for something to quickly, impulsively take away the deep pain that you're feeling in the emptiness. This is the biggest sign that you need to get into therapy and start working on yourself, right? If you're ruminating constantly about the other person and not thinking about you, these are major issues within yourself that you have not healed. Or again, we don't totally heal, but enough to be okay on your own. Again, for the first time, and I'm speaking from experience, even as a clinician, it's taken me a long time to finally get to that point where I absolutely have zero fucking desire to be with a guy. I'm getting a dog and I'm training it to be a therapy dog. And that is going to be my mission in the next little while. And I am so happy. And like Dr. Larman said, when you're done and there's something that just switches, you're done and you're not feeling that black empty hole and that emptiness, you know you're on the way to healing. And you're in a very different
Yeah.
space than before.
When you want to learn about you and grow and find out honestly why this is happening, that's a good start.
Don't run away. Don't be scared of therapy because you're terrified of a therapist telling you you have to be alone. No therapist can tell you what to do. That's not our job. We're not here to
No.
tell you what you should or shouldn't do. We're here to find out what it is in the behaviors and why you keep repeating the same behaviors. And is it benefiting you or is it not? Is it bringing and adding to your life in a positive way, or is it negatively impacting your life on a continual basis? And to get you to reflect to see and what it is to how to repair and the things that you need to focus on moving forward.
We are the navigators, you are the drivers. We're kind of trying to push you into a direction. Whether you want to go that way or not, that's up to you. But hopefully we can encourage you. But when you get to the point of, you know what, my family was toxic, my parents, whatever, and I went from toxic relation to toxic relationship and I'm done and I don't want to do it anymore. The way out of that is to learn who you are and to love that person and to get rid of, again, this goes back to, I don't believe in blaming the parents, but your past is really important because that's where you got those behaviors every single day. You add to those behaviors. So tomorrow you can start changing them. We are not bound by us today. We get to decide what we want to bring to tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. And radical acceptance. Just allow yourself to feel what you feel. It's not right. It's not wrong. It just is. And literally, if you can grasp the radical acceptance of the situation you're in, but look at yourself and go, I can't live like this anymore. And I can't feel this pain anymore. I need help. That's what a therapist is going to help you navigate your way through.
It's okay to cry. It's
Mhm.
okay to get angry. It's
Yeah.
okay to get mad at yourself because that's usually who we're angry at, actually. It's okay to feel all those feelings.
Mhm.
Don't be scared of them. Go to
Mhm.
therapy,
That's what we're there to
and
guide
that
you.
can help you to not be scared of them and to go through them and to process them because we don't process them because we don't like them and we
Right.
move on.
Well, it's the shame. We don't want to feel the shame. Shame is huge. Dr. Brene Brown, for those of you who don't know her, look into her books because that's what she did her thesis on. And dissertation was all on core shame.
So, on that note, like, subscribe. We drop an episode usually every 2 weeks, sometimes more, sometimes less. Please comment wcwycw1@gmail.com if you have any suggestions for topics or questions or wines or wine glasses or energy drinks or rum or
Sorry,
anything like
I know.
that.
No, I will get a drink next time. I will be fun.
It is okay. I am not an alcoholic. The kind of the only time I drink is now, but that's okay. But like, subscribe, share, and topics, anything like that. But again, I want to say, I cannot stress this enough. You will hear this as a broken record. Therapy, 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 therapy. The best outcome of therapy is the predictor of outcome is the rapport between client and clinician. So click with that person. We've done episodes on therapy shopping and stuff like that. So go back and listen to those. We will touch on this topic again.
And
Anything
love
else?
you. Just love you. Learn how to love you. It's one of the hardest things you'll
Big
ever.
time.
It is
Personal.
it's an ongoing journey. But start. If you don't now, find ways and start. And that's it. Bye, everyone.